Leave it to the sponsor Instagram. Make sure you click the link in the bio. Like, subscribe. You know what to do. Really appreciate you stopping by. Subscribe, everybody. Really appreciate that. So Nick Cannon, they didn't threw Nick Cannon under the bus for his last interview. Well, not his last interview, but one of his interviews that he had with Professor Griff. If you're not hip to Professor Griff, Google him. He is one of the originators of Public Enemy. He started out with Chuck D, Flavor Flav, and Terminator, their DJ Terminator. So, anyways, if you know Professor Griff and you follow Professor Griff like I have, Professor Griff is a known professor. But what he speaks about is nothing but positive things and really just trying to enlighten the black community to a lot of the things that we don't know about that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to the enlightened people, aka the Illuminati, when it comes to music, all the way down to music and its frequencies, how it affects your chakras. Professor Griff has a lot of knowledge and has dropped a lot of knowledge, as well as he has a few books out, and I'll make sure I have those book titles up at the end. But the reason I bring up Professor Griff and Nick Cannon is because that's who he had his interview with, and as you can see from the things that I've told you, I'm quite sure you're like, well, Professor Griff sounds pretty extreme. And I really wouldn't say he's extreme more so than he is smart. He's just intelligent, he's wise, has a lot of knowledge. And one thing about Professor Griff is that he can back up everything that he says. So, he can back it up with facts. He can tell you what books to read. He can tell you what articles to look up. So when you have individuals like that, scholars who really can give you information and give you the index on where they got that information from, you got to respect that. So today was, I guess somebody got a hold of the Professor Griff. Well, I'm quite sure a lot of people seen the video. It's been out for probably a couple weeks now. He had a whole interview with Professor Griff, and they kind of talk about a lot of things, from the Illuminati to white people to what's going on now, the political climate, things of that nature. And at one point in time, they got to talking about the history of Caucasian people, or from white people. And with that, he said a few things that. Well, first and foremost, what I do want to say is nothing that Nick Cannon said was incorrect. Everything that he said was pretty much on point when it comes to Caucasian people. Now, he didn't say anything about Jews or anything of that nature. He was pretty much saying Caucasian people. Now, before we get into Jews, because I'm not going to talk about Jews or any of that, because I have nothing to do with that. I don't even really subscribe to anything over there. But when people talk about Jews and saying that people are saying bad things about Jewish people, they always call them anti-Semites, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic, things of that nature. So, I don't know if it might have even been this interview that Nick Cannon did with Professor Griff, but I was watching an interview with either Professor Griff or might have been Dr. Claude Anderson. It could even been Brother Polite. I don't know, but one of the scholars that usually speaks, they were talking about when people call black people anti-Semites or anti-Semitic, or you're being anti-Semitic and things of that nature. And if you look up the definition of Semite or Semitic or Semite, it's Semite in the dictionary is a member of any of the people who speak or spoke a Semitic language, including in particular the Jews and the Arabs. Now, that's just the regular noun from the word Semitic, okay? From modern Latin, Semeta, via late Latin from Greek, Sem, Shem, son of Noah in the Bible, from whom these people are traditionally supposed to be descended. So if we really break it down, and you're talking about these are descendants from Noah in the Bible, then I think we're talking about black people, all right? Because I don't really think there are any white people in the Bible for real. So we're talking about black people. But let me give you another definition of. Let me give you the Encyclopedia Britannica definition of Semite. That one was a little bit more broader. A Semite, member of people speaking any of Semite, member of a people speaking any of a group of related languages presumably derived from a common language, Semitic. The term came to include Arabs, Akkadians, Canaanites, Hebrews, some Ethiopians, Armenian tribes, Mesopotamia, the western coast of the Mediterranean, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Horn of Africa have all been proposed as possible sites for the prehistoric origins of Semitic-speaking people, but no location has been definitively established. So, when you talk about Nick Cannon being anti-Semitic, he can't be anti-Semitic because we just went through the definition of what Semitic means, and Semitic is basically people of color. So in order for him to be anti-Semitic, that means he would be against people of color. So I think a lot of people need to. Don't get me wrong. There's different definitions, and just like everybody in the world, people gravitate to the definition that they feel as though fits their agenda. So of course, the first definition that I read to you guys is probably going to fit more people's agenda because they're going to say, "Oh, well, it says that people who that includes particularly Jews and Arabs." But the fact of the matter is, if you look at the different definitions of Semitic people, the majority of definitions are going to tell you that Semitic people are people of color. So Nick Cannon definitely wasn't being anti-Semitic, because how can he be anti-people of color when he is a person of color? But I think that just comes from, like I stated, people taking that definition and using it for, to fit their agenda. So, that's the first thing I wanted to speak about. Second thing I wanted to speak about is Caucasians. Now, when we talk about Caucasians as a race, I never really even cared where Caucasians came from. From what I understand, they came from Europe, came over here and colonized this country, say they discovered a place that already had people there, but they said that they discovered it. From what I understand, Christopher Columbus was a criminal, and there was a lot of other criminals that came over here from Europe that they let out of prison and just wanted to get them out the country. That's one. That's some information I heard about Europeans coming over here to this country, and when they got here, we know what they did. They raped, pillaged, diseased, and took over and basically conquered. They were barbarians when they got here, just like Nick Cannon said. And the reason being, like he said, if we go back into white people's history, which, once again, I study my own history, and I do study white people history, but not as much as I've probably been studying it this past hour and a half. But different information I get about white people, Caucasian people, and I really don't retain it because I don't care, because they're not me. And I already know majority of whatever they're doing, it's either, it's somehow they're cutting somebody's throat. Period, point blank, literally. In my opinion, white people, not all, but a lot of them don't have any empathy, don't have any sympathy, don't have any compassion. Like, they are not like us. And I think that's the main thing that Nick Cannon was saying. You just don't like the way he said it. But the fact of the matter is, they're not like us. So let's talk about the Caucasian race. Okay. Now, we're going to go to the Göttingen School of History. The term Caucasian as a racial category was first introduced in the 1780s by members of the Göttingen School of History, notably Christopher Meiners in 1785 and Johann Friedrich Blumenbach in 1795. It had originally referred in a narrow sense to the native inhabitants of the Caucasus region. Okay? So, the Caucasus region. What is the Caucasus region? Right? So when you go to the Caucasus region, the first thing that comes up is the Caucasus Mountains. When you look at the Caucasus Mountains, they're covered in snow. They're mountains, okay? Let me say these Caucasus Mountains are a mountain system at the intersection of Europe and Asia, stretching between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. It is surrounded by eponymous Caucasian region and is home to Mount Elbrus, the highest peak in Europe. Okay, so now I'm not about to get all deep into this shit because I don't need to. Like I said, if you look up Caucasus Mountains, there's a picture of it, and it's covered in snow. Okay, so with that being said, when Nick Cannon said that, white people have long hair to cover their necks and keep them warm in the winter because they lived in the damn mountains, okay? That's where they lived at. They lived in the mountains, and when it got cold, what did they do? They ate animals, okay? They were barbarians for real. Like, they were really like, they ate animals. They didn't cook animals. They ate animals. Like, when you see, in my opinion, when you see cartoons of cavemen, and they just was hitting their women over the head with clubs and dragging them home. I'm not saying that's what they really did, but sounds about right. So, I mean, Caucasian people are cavemen, are the cavemen, okay? Where do you think the ideology of cavemen came from? It didn't come from black people. Now, that's one thing you can say, okay? As much as white people have made fun of us, okay, and as much as white people have put us in all type of cartoons, all type of newspapers and shit, you never really see them put us in a cave, okay? You only see them in caves. It's like they can relate to caves, okay? We are not cave people, okay? We didn't live in caves and shit, okay? Black people did. White people did. But regardless, let's go back. Because I'm like I said, I'm getting on the whole thing. I'm getting off the topic with my man's Nick Cannon. So I'm guessing Viacom, they didn't cancel the shows and stuff like that. And my thing is, this is where the disconnect is with this country and racism. Obviously, the people at Viacom don't know their own history, okay? And instead of what they should have did, instead of firing Nick Cannon, you guys should have probably let him do a show or something, or maybe let him do a documentary on where white people come from. Because honestly, we know people are born, sperm, egg, all that good stuff. But where did white people originate from? Like, originally. Like, because there's a lot of different stories about where white people came from. Some people say they're aliens. Some people say they were manufactured in a laboratory. There's a lot of different ideologies of where white people came from. You don't have that same thing with black people, okay? Black people, we originated from the motherland. You know what I'm saying? The motherfucking cradle of civilization. You know what I mean? That's where we come from. Now, if you don't think so, that's on you. But there are no stories about us being created. Okay? And once again, with our melanin, we can create every shade of color. So we could actually create a white kid. We could create a white baby. 2 black people can create a white baby. It'll be crazy if it happened, but it can definitely happen. Okay? 2 white people cannot create a black baby. Okay? Period. They can't. They don't have the melanin. They don't have the color to make it. So it just won't happen. Shout out Nick Cannon. I would say that, I just hope that, he could come back and, white people should still love Nick Cannon, and I think at this point in time, white people should really be coming to Nick Cannon's side to support Nick Cannon, because if you know your own history, then you know white people have did a lot of dastardly things in this country as well as in other countries, okay? Like he said, you guys have a conquering mentality where we didn't. Like, for example, when it comes to slavery, the reason why reparations is something that really needs to be taken care of in America is because you're right. When people say slavery, wasn't new and slavery had always been going on in different countries and stuff before America, they're absolutely right. But nobody industrialized slavery like the Europeans in America did. Nobody made it so they made a whole basically country of slaves build the country that we now live in. There is nobody who's done that, okay? We're the first country, and these Europeans were the first Europeans to industrialize basically slavery and make money off of it. And they still make money off of it until this day. So when I say that, I'm just saying that to say, we at this point in time, hopefully we will see who really has Nick Cannon's back and what white people come to his aid, because right now, what Viacom did, that shit was wrong. Because if you know your history and you know what's going on with this country, and you see what's going on with this country with the racism and killing of black people and everything else, then you should already know that what Nick Cannon was saying definitely has some truth to it. And until white America, Caucasian America, accepts the fact and takes responsibility for their actions, then we're going to be in this boat for a long time. So, thanks for tuning in. Once again, subscribe. We appreciate the love. Peace.